Pacific War. The struggle against Japan, 1941 to 1945. Today on Unwrapped Wednesday, we're going to take a look at this release, 2022 GMT Games. Look at this thing. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Epic shot incoming. Forget it, it's too epic, we can't do it, it's ridiculous. All right, let's take a look. So, we're gonna rip the shrink, I guess, right? That's the rule for these videos. So let's do it, let's rip this open. So this game originally was released by Victory Games. I have that too, I'll pull that off the shelf here in a minute. We'll take a look at that and take a look at some differences, that sort of thing. But this is gigantic. I don't know if GMT has done a larger box, but I'd be hard pressed to believe it because this thing is ridiculous. All right, let's take a look. We have the core rules manual. Throw them out, I'm not gonna need them. No, I'm kidding. They have lots of different rules manuals here. So we actually have 3 separate rules manuals, and they are built sequentially so that you can approach the game as quickly as possible. So I am working through right now this engagement scenarios rule manual. This thing covers about, I don't know if it's like 8 scenarios or something like that, but they're shorter scenarios that get you right into the meat of fighting in Pacific War. When you're done with that and you're comfortable with it, you have the battle scenario rules manual. So these are a little bit longer. These are a little more complex. These add a couple more rules in, particularly around things like unit activation. Gives you a little more to be thinking about. You can see in the rules themselves, the rules that aren't used are not filled in, but they still show you what rules exist at what numbers. That way the rules references are all the same. Then you have the core rules. This is the rule book that has the whole schmear. And so let's go back. I think we had like rule 15, right? Naval repairs. That was not in battle scenarios. That's not an engagement. But here it is in the core rule book. This has the full schmear, and this will let you play the campaigns and the strategic level game, which are behemoths. So they say friendly monster. This is not a friendly monster. This is the monster that's waiting under your bed to attack you and give you all kinds of heartburn. And so this is the scenario book, and it's huge. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing here, right? They say 66 pages. Let's just check and see if that's accurate. Actually 71 pages, 66 pages to get into the strategic scenario. So the final strategic scenario on here starts on page 66, but ends on page 71. So this is a beast of a book. The nice thing about this game, and it's always sort of been this way, I guess, is that it shines in the scenarios. And I think what Mark's done this time around is try to make the campaigns a little more approachable. Some things have been streamlined, so they're not quite as fiddly, particularly around ports and bases being combined and some rules like that. I think submarine warfare has been refined. There have been some other changes, and I'm sure somebody will do a video at some point, if not me, about what that's going to look like. But there's others who are more familiar with this than I am that are going to explain that, I'm sure. Engagement scenarios right off the bat. You can do Pearl Harbor, Savo Island, First Invasion of Wake Island, Invasion of Burma, Battle for Imphal and Kohima, Force Z from Singapore, Raid on Darwin, and the Battle of Java Sea. These are all big name things that you're gonna wanna play. Right off the bat, you read, it's 20 some pages, maybe 28 pages, and you're in the mix of things with 8 separate scenarios. Then you've got the battle scenarios. Those are Wake Island, Coral Sea, Midway, Eastern Solomon, Santa Cruz Islands, Guadalcanal, Philippine Lady, Indian Ocean Adventure, Aleutians, Kiska Convoy, and Operation Land Crab. Again, you got 12 more scenarios right there without even having to touch a campaign scenario. That alone is a ton of game. Now you can get into the various campaigns, and they're broken out here, it looks, both by region and also maybe by year span as well. When I start to look at it, like Guadalcanal, Southern Conquest, Upper Solomons, War for the Central Pacific, Western Pacific. There's a whole China-Burma if that's a theater that you're particularly keen to play. And then of course you've got all the strategic scenarios. You also have in this version an extended example of play around the Battle of Coral Sea. And this is something that was not made available digitally previously, and I think that's one of my key things I was gonna kind of say as a part of this. Let me find in the engagement manual. So there are all these examples in the engagement manual, and particularly around combat. So here's one about strike procedures, and there are 4 different strike procedures that are outlined in the manual here, and there's not a graphic to be found anywhere in here. So yes, you can pull the pieces out and look at it and follow it through, and yes, it reads okay, but it really doesn't hit in the same way that an extended example of play is gonna hit and really show off. And one of the things that's nice, and this is in the original rule book, where they show the movements and they break down the movement by key, so you actually get to see when things are happening, because everything happens in battle cycles. So knowing kind of the impulse, I guess, that it moves in, the battle cycle that things move in, is really important to understand like what happens, particularly when you're talking about raids and strikes and things like that, and how that works. So again, here are those strike examples that show, again, not a whole lot, but you get some counter graphics to go along with it, and then of course the designer notes are in here as well. So right off the bat, we've only looked at rule books so far. That's a lot of rule books. That's a lot of text that had to happen for this. All right. So now we have these glossy mounted map boards. These things are a beast, and we'll take a look at those in a second. We've got some dice, great. Like other Mark Herman games, remember you're going 0 to 9, not 1 to 10. So that's probably worth paying attention to. Oh, I got a little fold in my player aid chart here, but let's take a look here. So we have, I think this is like 9 or 10 counter sheets. So we've got, and they're, the good GMT thickness counter sheets. Yeah, now one thing to pay attention to that folks have pointed out is that there is no year. There's a month and a day marker, there's no year, but you do have some extra counters here, and I know Mark has said there are gonna be some errata counters that come out in C3I. One, none of the errata affect the gameplay, and two, if you want to make some, you've got plenty of spares in here, and some all white ones, and then some with just a little trim on them. So, not a huge deal. Given the scope of what's in this box and what is actually represented here, I mean, what an epic job just trying to get all this stuff together. I'm super impressed. We also have in here tearaway sheets for the replacement record sheet. So again, if you're playing the scenarios or you're playing the battles or engagements, you're not gonna need to do the replacement record sheet, right? You get into campaigns, you get into larger, longer games, you're probably gonna want that. But again, there's a bunch in the box that you don't even need to get into that. And this is actually one of my favorite things right here. So this is a one map, and it's a soft foldable map. And it shows, you've got the Marianas, Caroline Islands, right? New Guinea, right? You've got New Hebrides, part of Australia here. So if you want to play a whole lot, there's 1942 and 43 all down in here for you to go ahead and play Battle of the Philippine Sea and Battle of Coral Sea right on this map. Now this map actually, from what I understand, covers a bunch of territory that's split between a couple different maps on the big map. So if you don't have a lot of table space and you want to play a whole lot of game, again, it's in the box, right? The effort that has gone into making this so that you can actually put this on the table and play it. Heck, with this thing, you could basically fold this up, take the counters with you that you need in some baggies, and roll off on vacation and take Pacific War with you. So that's pretty cool. Lots of force displays, right? I'm not gonna go through all the force displays. Lots of force displays for all kinds of different things going on here. Now you'll need those force displays because units don't actually stack up on the map. Now you can do it, right? And Mark has a bit in here talking about, I mean, if you wanna do it, you could, but it kind of eliminates the point of the game and eliminates some of the fun of a two-player game where you're not really sure what's going on. You got to kind of feel out what these task force are, who they are, and particularly because when units move away from a task force, right, they actually become another task force. And so you're going to want to have the ability to use a little cloak and dagger. You're going to need it. Some of these battles, and given the scale here, you're kind of in a knife fight. So we've got an operational display here. This is quite nice. It folds out sideways with our day track, of course, and we've got everything on there. We have Allied display sheet. This is a quad fold. Look at this thing. Let's go all the way through Allied display sheet here. And it's got just a ton of information. This is great to see. So I had not seen all of these up front, but one of the things that's a feature heavily of the original rulebook, but also the new rulebook, is this air mission procedure schematic diagram. And there's a whole lot that can go on and a whole lot of things that happen with air units as they go and fight. And Mark says in here that this is primarily an air war. And if you read through the rules, there's an awful lot of attention paid to the air war. And yes, there are navies and things like that, but a lot of it's about projecting this air power to go and find things and go and complement naval power and things like that. So it's really good. So having this air mission procedure schematic diagram, very, very handy. Lots of good stuff. We've got an Allied screen. This one is a little bit different. Let's take a look here. So this is one-sided. These are giant one-sided deals. And so this one has ground combat results, merchant shipping attrition table. And the reason that they're kind of set up this way is if you look, you can pretty easily, and I'm just setting this on a couple things, you can really easily set this up to block what your opponent is seeing. And so again, if you put these force displays behind these stand-ups, you are gonna be waging a blind war, and you're gonna have to be Joe Roquefort or somebody to try to figure out what's going on the other side. You got another operation display here. Now you've got the Pacific War screen and the display sheet. So again, lots of thought has gone into building out some really beautiful components for this and focusing in on what the player experience is gonna be out of the box. Let's take a look at the maps. We've got an awful lot to move out of the way here, so let's see. All right, the projection on this map is a little different, and so I want to make sure that I get this right, because every time I look at it, I kind of scratch my head a little bit, and I recognize that I'm probably not thinking about this in the right way. So that's one edge of the map. So here's one edge, and if you look, this is Australia, just to orient yourself, and China. So it's kind of a slice perspective, maybe, from what you're used to seeing, perhaps. And so I like kind of the way it's set up for. I like the way it's set up, but it's just kind of a different look. And of course, there's an awful lot of blue, right? It's the Pacific, so. So let's go ahead and take a look, right? So in bottom, we get, right, northern Japan, and then we can lay this over. We come all the way around and we've got Alaska here. So if you kind of draw and remember, right, you're looking sort of diagonally, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. So the Hawaiian Islands are sort of at this northern edge. So if that helps you orient, Midway is here. If that helps you orient at all, that may give you a better sense of just the way that these are sort of laid out. But I do like that they're able to fit just a massive amount of geography in the globe, and in particular, really center the map on where the heartbeat of the Pacific War was fought. I think this was just really smart idea to make sure that the focus was on where the playable space would be, rather than on meeting somebody's expectation of a map or whatever people think it should look like. So I do really love that, and I'm not so sure about how the old game map was aligned. Maybe it was this way. I don't know. I own it. I haven't played it. It's one of those, like I said, it's a monster that keeps you up at night, not a monster that gets you excited to give it a try because it's so friendly. And I think, to Mark's credit, he's been pretty upfront about that and said, it's going to take a little bit of time to work through it. Let me grab Pacific War 1985 off the shelf. Boom, that's the old Pacific War. Okay? I do want to point out, so we get cover. Okay? That's the new one right here. This is the old one. If we flip them side by side, it gives you kind of a sense of just big brother, little brother here, right? Let's take a look. In this original Pacific War, 1 die, no 2 dice, come on. Or dice like exotic in the 1980s, let's do this. We get one rule book. We got one rule book here. This rule book is R pages long. Now this rule book, let's see. How long is this rule book? It doesn't have pages, you just get lost in it forever. There it is, it's right at the top. 56 pages long for the rules. Typical Victory Games layout. So if you remember, I was showing you in the extended example of play, right? These charts, these are the same charts that were in this book. And I don't know if they're move for move exactly the same. I suspect not, because there are some differences between the original game and the new, but there is a comprehensive example of play in here. I like that it's separate in the GMT game, because sometimes you remember something from it, you want to go look it up, or you remember a piece of the rules that you want to go and check out, and you kind of go and take a look at it that way. The other thing that I like about the new rulebook layout is that everything is in the same spot. So if I'm playing in the battles and I've read the engagement, like I don't have to relearn the number ordering or anything else, and I also don't have to flip around between 3 different rule books. Each rule book is comprehensive in and of itself for the rules that are needed to play those scenarios. This is just one. This is must be a second edition release, or somebody was kind enough to throw this in the copy that I bought, but you have a errata sheet from '86. We've got a scenario booklet in here. The scenario booklet this time around looks like it's about 40 pages. And I suspect the GMT one would be roughly the same if it were laid out in this way, but the GMT one has a little fancier layout and that sort of thing. So I've not looked to see if there are really any differences there. Again, you've got your replacement record sheet, and you've got a horizontal operation display. Again, pretty similar. I think the information layout is virtually the same. There's maybe a couple little things that are different or easier called out. I like that the GMT one's full color. These are just black and white, or maybe 3 color. The force displays are actually a pad that you have to pull apart. So they've got the gum still on the back here for the binding of it, and a pad here on the end of it. Do end up with the same. Now these are quad folds, so similar to what we have in the current. This is the Japanese screen. So again, it's retained a lot of the character of the original game, and if you really loved it and you're looking for an update, oh boy, what a great opportunity to get you and your gaming group up to date with the latest stuff. Again, same add-ons for the most part here. We got 2 maps. So I think we had, 9 or 10 counter sheets before. Oh, look at this. We've got, so some counters fell out, and I think the previous owner was kind enough to throw them in the classic Victory Games tray for me that was at the bottom. Let's see what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 counter sheets here. Again, for the time, for a game from 1985, I'm telling you what, they look really good. They're on center, they are cut well, they have nice layout, stuff like that. They've got insanely detailed back of the counter sheet, but that's okay. We can deal with that too. So I think there was some good effort that went into translating this into a modern package without compromising on the resources that'd be necessary to play it, right? So all of the things that go into making sure players have all the tools they need to be successful. So let's take a look at these maps, since I said I hadn't looked at them. So let's take a peek and see and see what we got in terms of the layout. Because maybe it is the same. Like I said, it very well could be. And I think it is. By and large, I think it's pretty much the same. So that's the map sheet one like I showed you before. Again, you've got Australia down here. Focus on the map here, southern Japan, which means I think we're gonna find, yeah. Now we do have an interesting little fun tidbit here. So it looks like there must be some cutting that's necessary to put this map together completely. But you do have Alaska and the Hawaiian Islands here. So this is the same projection that we got in the new map. I think the new map is actually I think it's a little easier to read in the new map for terrain. It certainly looks better. I think, you know, all things considered, this was a pretty attractive map for the mid 80s. I think they've done a nice job of, again, giving you a key. And this is on the new map as well. I don't think I showed it in the video, but you do get a nice key of kind of like where things are at and what, how they're oriented, so that you have a chance to look at it in a little different way. This is not how many books portray the war, so, you know, just something to keep in mind. I don't think it'll take you but a couple seconds to figure out where you are and what you're doing. So there you have it. You have the new GMT Games. Let's get it in the right spot and bang it around as much as possible. New GMT Games, right? The original from Victory. Pacific War, struggle against Japan, 1941 to 1945. I hope you enjoyed this Unwrapped Wednesday.